Hello everybody, welcome to today's episode of Learn to Code. Today we're going to be talking about while loops. While loops are great for when you want to keep doing something until a certain condition is satisfied. So just one real life example of this is eating. Unless you're on a diet, you typically continue eating until you're no longer hungry. So when we have something we want to keep doing until a certain specific condition is satisfied, that's when we know we're supposed to use a while loop. Here, I started writing the program to represent me eating. I've created a method called eat that just prints out chomp to the terminal. And so I can call it up here the same way I would with system.out.println. And I can say eat parentheses. And now when I execute this Java program, it'll go into the main method. It'll go here, it'll call eat. Eat will print out chomp, and then it'll go back up, and then it'll be done. And we can make sure, and we see that it prints out chomp. And so we know that we want to keep eating until we're not hungry. And so I can make a Boolean variable called hungry that'll represent if I'm hungry. So Boolean hungry. And for those that don't know, a Boolean variable is basically just a true or false variable. And I'll start being hungry because I'm always hungry. I'll fix the tab order. And so now we want to use a while loop to keep eating until we're no longer hungry. And so we can do that. We make while loops by just typing a while. And then we put our condition in here, make our curly braces, and this is how all while loops are going to look pretty much. And our condition in this case is while I'm not hungry, or excuse me, while I am hungry, we want to continue eating. And so while I'm hungry, and you might be tempted to say while hungry equals true. We don't actually need to do this because if hungry is true, this condition will evaluate to true. So we can just say while hungry, and then we know we want to eat when we're hungry. And so now when we run this, we'll run into an issue. And you might already see the issue. We see it's taking a long time, so we should go back and look at our while loop and see when does it end. And so this is one of the most common issues you're going to run into when you're working with while loops, something called an infinite loop. Here, our condition is always true. And so we're going to be stuck in an infinite loop. And we can make sure that this doesn't happen by making sure that our condition is not always true. And so to help illustrate this, I'm going to create a random object. And when we use the random objects, we have to import. So we just come up here and we're going to say import java.util.random. And if you're ever unsure about what to import, you can open or Google the documentation for whatever you're working with, and it'll tell you. And so with that imported, we made this new random object. Now I'm gonna make it so that my hunger is pretty random. And so it's gonna just be a random number between 1 and 10. And we're just going to say rand.next int. And rand.nextInt, basically it works in that it'll give you a number between, in this case, it would give me a number between 0 and a minus 1, because it is exclusive bound on a. And so in this case, we're going to do something looks a little tricky, but we're going to do 10 plus 1. And so this will give me a number between 0 and 9. And then this will add 1 to that number. And so essentially, hunger will always be between 1 and 10. All right, and now let's say that I am no longer hungry if hunger equals 0. If hunger is 0, then I'm no longer hungry, and I'll set it to false. So now in this program, I'll add some spaces to make it a little readable. We make a new random object, and then from that random object, we say, give me a number between 0 and 9, add 1 to it. So we know that hunger will always be between 1 and 10. And then we set our hungry variable to be true. And then we say, while we're hungry, first eat. And then if hunger is 0, set hungry to be false. And then we need to decrement hunger by 1. And so now, each time we go through the while loop, hunger will get closer to 0. And so now the loop should not be infinite. And we can see that we ate 5 times and our hunger was satisfied. You might be saying, so that's great, but why don't we use a for loop for this? It seems like it'd be a lot less complicated. Well, you're right in that for loops could be used for something similar, but in this case, we don't always know how many times we want to eat. For example, if I said for I 0, I less than 10, I plus plus. Yes, this would always let us eat 10 times, but what if we weren't hungry? We'd be forced to eat 10 extra times than what we needed. Also, think about what would happen if we were still hungry after eating 10 times. In this case, for loop is not the answer. Well, a while loop is. There are tons of real-life applications of a while loop. Things like tree traversals, creating graphs, Dijkstra's algorithm. There are tons of data structures that are much better suited for while loops than they are for loops. And that's going to do it for while loops in Java. Let me know what concepts you want to go over in the next lesson. And as always, please don't forget to subscribe, and I hope you have a great day.